What is up, everybody? This is Chthonian Lines here, bringing you a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about the 4th place OCG True Draco Demise deck profile. And that's right, you see no Masterpiece and no Dragonic Diagram. You want to know why that is? It's because both of those cards are at 0 in the OCG. But for some reason, this deck went 4th place at a tournament. The madman or woman, whoever took this, is definitely kind of an insane person because they are playing some of the most crazy cards in this deck that I've ever seen. So let's just jump right into the deck profile itself. We got 1 Dinomight Knight, 3 Ignis Heat, and 3 Majesty Maiden. I guess this is because these cards are just generally really good cards. They act as just really big beat sticks, and they do the job relatively well. There's not very many cards that are being played in the OCG other than like maybe Zephyrs that can actively get over cards like these because they're too high level or too high of attack power. I think some of the decks over there are a little bit low, like this card wins against Streak Stars and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. Gokis, I think they have to really struggle for this to even make a difference against this deck. There's a lot of consistency with this card, plus the deck is really good against the cards or decks that search a lot of cards, and we're going to go into reasons why that is. Dynamite is at 1, and they have 3 Ignis, so that's why you see 3 of that stuff here. Dynamite Knight is insanely good because he sets traps, and that's really good disruption for your opponent. This guy searches your spell cards, which is also really good because both of those cards are both Disciples and Heritage are really good as well. On to the spells, there are 14 of them. We have 1 Pot of Desires, 2 Card of Demise, 3 Pot of Duality, 3 Deck Lockdown, 2 Heritage, 3 Disciples. The Pot of Dualities are pretty standard. I think if you go with True Dracos in general, I think your ratios are going to be 2-2, or if not, you're going to be playing 1 Duality, 3 Desires, or 1 Desires, 3 Duality. It's really up to you what makes you feel more comfortable with the deck. Personally, I would just go for 2 and 2 because it seems like that sometimes Pot of Duality can just end up being a dead card, especially if you get it off a Pot of Duality, whereas Pot of Desires is fine because if you have 1 and you just banish it, it's totally okay. Deck Lockdown exists simply because it stops your opponent from searching cards, except by drawing them. Monsters can't be special summoned from decks, so it prevents cards from being summoned from the deck, which is really interesting. This card has always kind of had the opportunity of being a really good card. It's always come very close, but usually never really found its way into decks. And I think if they were to find a way in any deck, it would be True Draco, simply because they can run basically any Floodgate that they want. They're kind of like Leaf-Forts in that way. They can run pretty much any Floodgate whatsoever that you can imagine, and Deck Lockdown is definitely one of the more premium ones for them, simply because they don't special summon from the extra deck, which is all in all what a lot of decks do these days. So yeah, 2 Heritage because you only play 2, and Disciples because Disciples is insane. I just took out Disciples. Oh no, it's not here. Never mind, we're good. And on to the traps. There are 19 traps. We have 3 Waterfall of the Dragon Souls, 1 True King Return, 2 Gozen Match, 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance, 2 True Draco Apacolypse, 1 Imperial Order, 3 Unending Nightmare, and 3 Skill Drain. The Imperial Order, Unending Nightmares, and Anti-Spell Fragrances, I assume they're all in here for the Sentoki matchup. Sentoki's it kind of just eats this deck alive with the current hits it has, and like I said, they can play meta bench any card that they want, and any continuous spell card they want, and these cards are just very premium cards. This card is an insane blowout against that deck. It really doesn't matter if your spells get stopped in True Draco because they're mostly consistency cards anyway, and some of them are half of them are continuous spells anyway, so you could just tribute them off later at some point, and it's all nice and good. Side note, if Deck Lockdown is active before Imperial Order does, Deck Lockdown will still apply its effect, so do keep that in mind. That's probably one of the things that it was played around with for Imperial Order, so yes. And they play 3 Skill Drain. Skill Drain, I assume, is for every other matchup. Skill Drain is insanely good. The reason why we have it at 1 is because it's obviously really powerful. Cards that blanket stop Skill Drain like effects is pretty good. They don't have to run amano-iwato like we do, simply because of Skill Drain being at 3. So I don't think this is a very problematic issue for them as far as amano-iwato is concerned, because they don't want to play it. And Waterfall Dragon Souls, it's basically just searching war monsters, as well as it sends war monsters to the graveyard, and then you can send and then you draw cards equal to the monsters you sent +1. It's pretty good. It's more consistency for the deck. So and Gozen Match over, I guess it makes sense over is also over Rivalry of the Warlords, especially against some Tokis, simply because they have to, if they are on the field, they have to commit to one of the types. They can't commit to both of them, and if they're stuck with Ray, then they can't actively go into their like monsters, which is kind of the point of this card. So it's really good. So on to the extra deck. Not that it really matters, because I think the extra deck here is just for show, but we'll just go over it anyway. Because because you want to copy paste the list. 1 Metalfoes Orichalc, 1 Invoked Purgaturio, 2 Metalfoes Mithrilium, 1 Metalfoes Adamante, 2 Fullmetalfoes Alkahest, 1 Denglong, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Evilswarm Exciton Knight, 1 Borolo Dragon, 1 Firewall, 1 Trisbania, 1 Mrs. Radiant, and 1 Security Dragon. Theoretically, before looking over this list, I figured like maybe he had Metalfoes side decked in his extra deck, so you just go through with like a True Draco Metalfoes kind of thing. But that wasn't actually the case here. I didn't see it. Obviously you don't see a single Metalfoes in his side deck at all. And I honestly don't know why the extra deck's even here. You could probably play without the extra deck. But perhaps that's probably his entire plan, because maybe his opponent might think, oh, he's playing Monarchs Erupt. So I guess this makes sense in some way, shape, or form. But it's just like kind of just a random amalgamation of cards that are just thrown in here, just to appear to have 15 cards in his extra deck. But obviously it worked out for him because he got 4th place at a tournament. So on to the side deck. I'm going to start displaying the side deck simply because it's easy to see what they're playing, so you can kind of get an idea of what matchups, what potential matchups they're for. So we have 3 Sphere Mode, 3 Max C, 1 Hopper's Feather Duster, 2 Typhoon, 1 Evenly Matched, 3 Mind Crush, and 2 Solemn Judgment. We don't have 2 Solemn Judgment, so we're going to be playing 1 Solemn Judgment probably for the remainder of our time playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Those Solemn Judgment probably should come to 2. That being said, 2 Solemn Judgment, having 2 cards that stop anything that you want is pretty good. And the cost isn't really that significant if you really think about it. So, 3 Mind Crush. I think this is specifically for Sentoki, because you have to reveal the Sentoki monster, Ray. You have to reveal Ray to activate as her quick effect, and then you just activate Mind Crush, call Ray, and then they have to discard it, and then they won't get the effect of Ray because it's not in the hand, and they won't be able to use it. But they can chain a second Ray to it, I think, and then it'll just all for naught. But that's given the situation that they have 2 Rays in their hand, which is very unlikely. But if they do, then it is what it is. Additionally, if they if they activate Reinforcements of the Army, or I think Startup Engine to search a card, I think Startup Engine searches Ray, then you just go Mind Crush, and then you just get rid of the cards in their hand. They can still chain Ray to it to keep that in mind, though. Evenly Matched obviously is a really good card. If we're not going to go talk too much about it, but it's really weird how we haven't really seen much of Evenly Matched in the OCG, aside from a couple of decks side decking this card. It's really pervasive here in the TCG, by comparison, where everyone is playing it in the side deck, and you see a lot of people, at least in the top cuts, playing at least 2 or 3 copies of Evenly Matched. But some people aren't even playing this card, which is kind of interesting. 2 Typhoon. I actually kind of think this is like Deck Lockdown. It's kind of one of those cards that's very fringe, but it's very close to being meta relevant. For those of you who do not know what this card is, this card came out of Battle Pack 3, and it has an MST effect where you target a face-up, except it's for face-up cards, and if it's sent to the graveyard by your opponent's effect, you can destroy 2 cards instead. It's pretty good. It's also kind of comparable to Evenly Matched, because you can activate this card from your hand as well if you have no spell and trap cards. So It's really cool. Actually, I'm wrong. It's not at all like that. It does have the MST effect, but if your opponent has 2 or more smudge cards, you could just activate this from your hand. So it's, like I said, it's one of those cards that's been very close to being relevant, but it just hasn't reached that potential. It's been side decked before though in the TCG though, so do keep that in mind. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster and the 3 Maxi. Obviously, we don't have excess of Maxi or Harpy's Feather Duster. I think in this case you'd probably run Raigeki and like maybe Ash Blossom, since they have Ash Blossom too. I'm also really surprised this guy didn't run Ash Blossom in a side deck. So yeah, and Redrago Sphere Mode. This is specifically, I believe, for Zephyros. Since Zephyros can make these really big boards, they're kind of more relevant than Pendulum Magicians at the current time. There's been a lot of Metalfoes Zephyr cards decks running around in the OCG as well, so they can produce pretty much the same boards that Zephyr can, as well as Pendulum Magicians of past. So it's really good to see this lineup here. It's a really good side deck, I must admit. Some of the stuff is really interesting. Having 2 free negates for pretty much everything, and this is to stop Sentokis if they go way too far in. These cards are for any matchup whatsoever. This card is insanely good. This card's obviously insanely good. It's just not being played as much as in the OCG as people would thought. And this is just to stop 3 negates, or the 3 negate board that Pendulum decks tend to spew out. So if you guys enjoy, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. I will have the list in the description down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. This has been Unending Nightmare, and I'll be signing out.